Welcome back. David Penn here, your host, coming to you from the studios of Free People Radio here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the belly of the beast. Um, there's been a lot of interest in the video that I've been putting out about Jeffrey Sachs. Jeffrey Sachs is a PhD professor at Columbia University. That is a very important university. Uh, he's very prominent there. He's been very involved in government for decades. His opinion is respected. He is well known. He's articulate, and he's grabbed the attention of the so called populist movement here in the United States by being very critical about the war in the Ukraine, actually assigning the blame to that war, not to the Russians, but to the West. And also been very critical about the nation of Israel, going so far as to say that Israel, the Jews, run American foreign policy. So when a well known leftist PhD involved in global governance for decades comes out and assigns blame not to Putin, but to the West, to the United States, and also talks about Israel manipulating U.S. foreign policy, well, that's kind of a bombshell. And I was very interested in Professor Sachs for speaking in this way. His comments on Ukraine and Israel still bear merit and bear our attention. But Jeffrey Sachs is an unrepentant globalist. I'm also interested in him because I have a daughter who's at Columbia University, entering next year, her senior year. I fought her very hard. I didn't want her to go there. I didn't want her to go there because Columbia is one of the most important globalist institutions in the United States of America. President Trump has cut a deal with Columbia, first threatening their funding and then coming to an agreement because President Trump knows that at our elite academic institutions, the education there is not fair and balanced. It is quite tilted towards leftism. These universities, even back to the time I went to the East Coast in the 70s, these were communist in propaganda institutions where you went in and you were you might have come in a believer and you went a non-believer who was a leftist. That's what these schools do, and that's the price that's required of any student that enters those schools that seeks to be involved in that process, i.e., if you want to go to law school or medical school coming from those elite institutions, you're going to have to bend a knee to the ideology of those schools. And President Trump is now involved in a very serious legal battle with Harvard, threatening to remove the tax exempt status of Harvard over the same issues. Harvard would not bend the knee, Columbia did. Well, okay. Jeffrey Sachs is there. Jeffrey Sachs caught by attention by going against the conventional wisdom. But Jeffrey Sachs, um, Jeffrey Sachs is still a globalist. Let's listen to a clip.
And there's one other concept that I find very, very useful. And it's actually embodied in the European idea. It came from the Catholic Church originally, but it's called subsidiarity. And the idea of subsidiarity is, let's get real. We need governments at all levels. We need a global government, that's the UN. We need a regional government, that's the European Union. We need a national government, that is the government of Cyprus. We need a local government, that is the Nicosia City Hall where we are right now. You have governments at all levels.
Wow, what a believer in government. Um, do we? We think we do. But human beings self-governed for thousands and thousands of years with far less intervention by alleged bureaucrats, administrators, plutocrats, technocrats that knew better for how I was supposed to live my life um, than I did. I reject this idea. Sachs is a globalist. He said the quiet part out loud. The United Nations is global government. Global government. This whole movement in our country, this whole populist movement is to um, extract we the people from global governance and restore our national sovereignty. I think most people my age at one time viewed the United Nations very favorably. As the United Nations has developed over time, it has failed to deliver its number one mission, which was peace. I was there when it started. Its idea was to manage peace. There's a what's called the Security Council, which is supposed to maintain the peace. Actually, what the Security Council is regulate, what it does is regulate war the same way that the states are regulating sales of cigarettes. Cigarettes aren't good for you. They're still legal to buy. They're just regulated. In a very similar fashion, war is not good for a person. It's just regulated so it doesn't get out of control. So, what the United Nations has become is a regulator of war so that a very small number of people can get famously wealthy creating the weapons of war. No, I don't like this idea. If the United Nations had worked, the world would be at peace. If free trade had worked, the world would be at peace. These ideas, global governance and free trade, were sold to people of my age group as a way to maintain the peace. But look at our world. The world is at war. We have a line of conflict that extends from the Ukraine down to Yemen. We have a growing conflict now in India, Pakistan. We're on the verge of war in the South China Sea. Our southern border has a war between we the people and the cartels. The world's at war. So the self-avowed mission of the United Nations and how free trade was sold to me to bring about peace failed. It is an F. So if it's going to be an F, what is its value? Are we going to hang on to thought forms that are proven to be inefficient and non satisfactory? Or are we willing to go through the change, to go through the hardship of the change, to restore our national sovereignty and our national character, to rebuild what it is to be an American citizen, to rebuild the community so that the divide between globalist and nationalist is not so wide? Could we find a new political strategy that would unify we the people? I have one to suggest. It's the politics of human well being. If it makes people well, if it enhances the quality of their life, if it brings more meaning to their everyday, I want to have it considered. Therefore, if it's a war, how do wars of discretion, how do wars in faraway places bring about well being for my children? Now, Jeffrey Sachs did a great job of redacting the start to the war in the Ukraine and the way Israel is involved in our foreign policy process. But in this clip, where he says we need to have government at every level, this I must reject. In this sense, Sachs is nothing but a big government globalist who believes that we, the people, cannot operate our own lives without the diktats of professional politicians. Look what the professional politicians have done to our country. $37 trillion of debt. We've been involved in an endless war to protect democracy since 2000 in Bush. And the last administration let in millions and millions of people who came here illegally, not following due process. This is what these paid professional administrators and bureaucrats have given my family. And if that's what they have to give, well, let's try something else. Let's have the bravery to go in a new direction. This is David Penn, your host. Thanks very much for joining. I look forward to seeing you soon again.